Hi folks, I'm Richard I. Porter, and today's talk is called To Be a Leader, Deliver Victory, and Share in Suffering. IBM is doing this wrong. Paying your top boss 300 times the average while laying people off, suspending raises and bonuses for those that keep their jobs is the wrong answer. The Marine Corps knows how to do this right. It doesn't always deliver on its promise, but it knows the path to get there. This is scary for me to do. To take the risk of so vocally criticizing such a powerful decision that IBM is making while working for them. But it's not about me. See, I am well compensated. My family is well taken care of. I have a lot to be happy about. But there are people at IBM that are in a more challenging situation, and I don't know how to make this change. I have raised my voice elsewhere, but I also think it's important to offer this lesson to other people that could learn from it, not just necessarily inside the company. I mentioned the Marine Corps. This is where I learned a lot of my values and a lot about leadership. And I'm wearing one of the shirts that the recruiters give out. And it may seem obnoxious to say things like pain is weakness leaving the body, but there's a truth to it. I tell my daughter that courage is knowing the right thing and doing it, even if you are scared of it. And I think this is the right thing, to share this lesson that I've gotten. So I want to record this and see where it goes. There's a direct quote from Thomas J. Watson Jr., one of our famous CEOs at IBM and Father, Son, and Company. It seems relevant here. He said, "How much more am I worth to IBM than the guy down at the bottom of the pay scale? Twice as much? Sure. 10 times as much? Maybe. 20 times as much? Probably not." End quote. And he was balking at only 20 times, not the 300 times that Ginny Rometty was being paid before she left the company compared to the average IBMer. Not the bottom paid, the average. This puts IBM at the literal top of the list of CEO to average worker pay. I haven't seen a redone analysis for 2020, but they're going to. And are we confident that IBM will no longer be at the top of the list? Should we even be anywhere on it when we're only making 92% of our revenue targets at the executive level and having cyclical layoffs every single year? Pointing to the market as the reason we have high executive compensation ignores that we are at the top of the market in comp comparisons. We are setting the wrong example, and our competitors are growing powerfully while we are not. We are not delivering victory, and our competition isn't laying off sizable groups of workers every year, halting a salary cycle for 12 months, and not funding growth-driven profit programs for employees, only for top executives to control costs while simultaneously buying back shares, juicing executive compensation, and awarding big payouts for partial attainment of executive goals, as reported in our shareholder documents. That's not taking care of our people or requiring our executives to share in the suffering. How can we justify even 5 times, let alone TJ Watson Jr.'s point of 20 times, to say nothing of the market-topping 300 times we've had? How could it be done right? Well, many people think of the military as an organization in which rank and structure and deference means significant inequality, and there are elements of truth in this. But there is a countervailing force that demands, that requires, that forces a level of equality that nothing else will, and that is combat. It is critical that a leader delivers victory to those they lead, or drinks more deeply of the defeat than anyone else on the team, or they won't be the leader for long. Nothing forms bonds among a team quite as strongly as shared suffering. What does this mean in the business context in the modern era? If there are pay cuts, the highest paid people should get them first. If there are layoffs, the executive organization cannot possibly be paid bonuses, stock incentives, or boost their compensation with stock buybacks. If additional hours are required, the most senior people need to be putting them in first. If there are perk or benefits cut, the most senior people in the organization take them first. It means shared suffering. It means setting the example. To set the example is the bedrock of all leadership. It is cast into sharp relief in the military by the hot fires of combat. A unit which encounters combat with a leader that doesn't set the example will rapidly result in defeat, a change of leadership, disintegration of the team, or all of these. This principle can be applied to modern business, albeit admittedly with less urgency and intensity because people are risking only their time and their livelihoods, not their very lives. What a leader must do is set the example, behave as they expect others under their leadership to behave, outline the mission, deliver victory, the who, what, where, when, and critically, the why of the mission. Leaders must deliver victory or share equally or greater in the defeat. and they must take care of your people. If you can't deliver victory, if you experience defeat, you must drink more deeply of it than anyone else. To dive into each of these a little bit more, set the example. The rest of all leadership flows from this single truth. You don't get extra permission, you have extra requirements. A leader may never ask someone they lead to do something that they would not be willing to do themselves. This doesn't mean that they need to do everything they ask of those leads, but it does mean if they can jump in from time to time and get their hands dirty to demonstrate they can, they should. You cannot effectively lead from a cushy chair in an air-conditioned tent, or from a white stallion miles behind the lines in a fancy suit, or from an executive suite. You have to get out to the front. You have to lead from the point of friction and to share in the pain of the people at the bleeding edge that are delivering on the mission you outlined. Speaking of, you must outline the mission and you must deliver victory. You need to sketch the why. You can't really delegate this. You can accept input, you can solicit feedback, and you should. You can holistically empower members on the team to draft their contributions, but in the end, it is the leader who commits themselves and the team they lead to the purpose of the organization. You should set an aspirational, world-changing purpose. You should describe a compelling vision of the world, how it will look when you've changed and achieved your mission. You should describe the effects you'll have on the battle space, the population and friendly forces, or the market, the consumers, the users of your products and services, and your competition. The military calls this the end state portion of commander's intent. Then you set intermediate goals. You describe the why, the what, the when, the where, and the who will accomplish these goals, and critically, you tie them back to the higher level, why, eventually anchoring to the purpose of your entire organization. You can delegate authority, but not responsibility. It is your charge to win victory, and victory is the best morale booster. Even when people have been driving hard and sacrificing sleep, health, or even the lives of their friends and comrades, if the mission is worthy of it, and victories are achieved, it can be sustained. You must take care of your people. If you can't deliver victory, then you must make clear you are bearing the cost as much as your team is. People are not resources to be expended. People are human beings that possess time and attention and talents. These are resources that you can ask them to allocate to spend on your missions. This principle may shock people. In the military, where we ask people to risk their very lives, how can we talk about not expending people? How can we hold in tension the need to take care of the people while knowing we may ask of them that they lay down their very lives for the cause? Because that is the only way it can be done. Rank alone is never enough to put someone into a life-threatening situation. A sergeant may be able to order a private to scrub a toilet, but charging a machine gun nest requires something much more. Sometimes fear can be a sufficient motivator to overcome fear of death or injury. In some militaries, a private sufficiently afraid of a sergeant may charge a machine gun nest, knowing the alternative is being shot by his own sergeant. Some measure of this could be used in combination with fear of shame. That private might fear judgment by his peers for giving in to his fear for not charging the machine gun. But neither of these fear-based motivators can last for long, and it won't lead to many victories. Truly effective militaries know that the only way to overcome fear is love. Love for one another and the team, love for the mission and the purpose. So practically for business leaders in the modern environment, what am I saying? I'm saying you, as a leader, must deliver victory or take a greater share of the suffering than any member of your team. Simon Sinek observed that in the Marine Corps we have a culture in which leaders eat last, and he titled his second book after the practice. This is a symbolic, but also practical demonstration of the Corps' culture for sharing in the suffering of your team. If there isn't enough food, the leader thereby experiences the most of that problem. Dan Price is the CEO of Gravity Payments. He made headlines for setting a minimum salary at his company of $70,000. He did this by cutting his own compensation. The results have been powerful in the effectiveness of his company. In the pandemic, he and his executive team followed the framework. They shared in the suffering and cut their own pay first, then others who volunteered for it to protect others that would otherwise have been laid off. Conversely, some organizations accepted massive bailouts while laying people off and compensating their executives at absurd levels, as though nothing were wrong. Hopefully, regulators will step in to stop these unethical and immoral decisions in the future so we can have harsh capitalism with companies and allow them to die if they've made bad mistakes, while protecting people. But even if we don't have regulators step in, the most talented people in an organization will notice. They will seek companies where leaders share in their hardship, where they set the example, where they outline the mission and deliver victory, where they take care of the team, or bear the brunt of the suffering. Which one do you want to be?